Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some Hero Arts products. The kind of star of our show is this Santa Sleigh fancy die, and then I'm also using the holiday borders and icons, and the holiday Peg Dolls bundle, the one that has the dies with it as well. So I have not cut apart my die yet, so I'm just working through that. This particular die comes with the sleigh and then a present, a bow, the mistletoe leaves, and some berries. I'm not going to be using the mistletoe and the berries today. I'm just going to be using the sleigh, the tree, and the presents and bows. Bows and presents. I'm going to cut one sleigh, and then I'm going to cut 3 of everything else. So one of the things that's super kind of nice about my new setup is that I actually get to show you guys when I'm doing the die cutting, which honestly makes doing dies a little bit easier in videos. So before, I've got all those now taped down. I'm just cutting everything out of white, the Dove white cardstock, because I'm going to Copic color them. I know that that's not necessarily everybody's favorite way to die cut, and I totally get that, and Hero Arts has beautiful cardstocks that will also work, but I, especially as a beginning crafter, and even now, I don't carry a lot of colored cardstock. I just don't. I just always made my own. So here, just to note, this is the Hero Arts, what is it? The compact cutter. I can never remember the name, even though it's very handy. And it's actually one of my favorite ones because it doesn't have the arms that fold out, which take up more room. This is genuinely compact. What you see is what you get. But anywho, so I've always kind of just made my own because I could create the dimension that I wanted. And not that the images aren't super pretty flat, they are. And actually, Mindy Egan used this die and colored cardstock to create like a super clean and simple card, which was just stunning. So if you go to the website, it's actually listed as one of the examples with this die. But it's beautiful. It's just not my style. Like, it's not what I would create. So since I do enjoy the coloring and I enjoy the dimension, I'm going to create my own, and that's why I'm cutting it out of white. I do all of mine with Copic coloring, but you could add like a layer of ink blending down first and then add your dimension with your markers, and that would work as well. Just some options for you. So once I'm done die cutting all of those, 3 trees, 3 presents, 3 bows, now I'm going to cut the sleigh. And my favorite part of this sleigh is what is it called? Is it the feet? The actual sled portion, the bottom with the intricate, I mean, I guess that's why it's called a fancy die. But like with the little curls and loops, like that's my favorite part of this die. And I think that it's also a really good way, and you'll see when we get to the coloring, that oftentimes I tell people my yellow combination is more of a golden yellow, and they're like, meh, I don't know if that's really gold, but this time we're actually coloring gold, and I think you'll be able to see it a whole lot better. So now that the die cutting is done, I'm going to smush those aside, and we're going to move on to the coloring. This little Peg Doll Santa is the perfect size to fit into my sleigh. I don't know if Hero Arts did that on purpose or not. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure if they did, but he fits perfectly, and I'm very happy about it. Because it let me create a scene, and you know I love a scene. I love a good scene. So here, just getting into the coloring, I chose some lighter this is an E50, an E00, E11, and E04. That's the one that if I'm coloring like more of a Caucasian skin tone, that these are my go-to markers. So adding shading to him, there's going to be shading underneath his hat because that would cast a shadow. And then there's also going to be a little bit of shading above his nose and his beard and mustache because you know, like I know, like when I'm looking at it now, like it being colored, it looks like all you can see are his little eyeballs, but it won't stay like that. I am going to be shading the white portions. I'm just adding the shadows with some grays, and it's going to look like I made Santa, I don't know, a super dirty Santa. Like he's very unkempt and hasn't showered, because there's no other colors to compare it to. And it's going to be the same thing with the trim on his coat, which I colored white, and it's going to look gray because there's no other colors to compare. So just keep that in mind as we're going along for when you're trying this at home, which I hope that you are. That it does look a little dark and a little gray to begin with, but once you start adding in the other colors, it does look white. For his beard, I just did little flicks, like little lines to kind of create some texture, and I did that with the C1 and the C3, but I'm not going to do it with the C5. The C5 is genuinely just going to be my shadow color. So I put it on either side of his hat band, underneath his mustache, and then legitimately just a dot of it. One dot, no pressure. Just touched the tip of the marker to the trim and moved on to the next one. Here we're just blending out those colors, and then we're going to move on to the next color. The reason that it's important to do the grays before we do the rest of his suit is because sometimes your lighter colors can pick up your darker colors, and I don't want red streaks in the areas that I want to be white. So it's important to do those lighter areas first, so there's no risk of cross-contamination. And you'll actually see this happen to me where I pick up a darker color later on in the video, because it does happen. You know, alcohol inks activate alcohol inks. So going in and coloring his outfit, most of it's pretty straightforward. I did just want to make one little note on his hat. So I like to start with my lightest color because I'm heavy-handed with the first color I go in with, and also because it's the easiest one to cover up if you make a mistake. But you'll notice on top of his hat, I've added this curved line. So you can see in the actual illustration, like the actual black line drawing, that the hat kind of dips in. When I made that curved line, I followed it from that little dip in. And I'm going to keep adding shading to that little dip. And the reason is because by the time it's all said and done, it's going to help it look as if the hat is laying on top of itself. Like it's actually smushed down, laying on top of itself by how we color it. And a lot of times when you're not really sure where to add shadows, in like this particular case, there isn't any real direction with the illustration for where to add them. If you want more dimension, you can really just follow the rule of if there are two things that are laying on top, like one's on top of the other, add shading. So like where his coat's on top of his pants, that gets shading. His hands are on top of his coat, that gets shading. And the other thing is where 2 points meet. So in his hat, where we're creating that line is where those 2 points meet and that little divot is created. Same thing with under his beard. His beard is meeting his coat, so you can add a little bit of shading underneath that as well. I hope that makes sense. Or you can do none of this. Like you could just color it in a flat color and it would still be a very cute image. You don't necessarily have to be crazy with the dimension. I just want to show you how to do it if that is something you're trying to achieve. So you can see at the top of the hat, my darkest color has been added and we still have this huge white area. That will get filled in gradually as we work back out to our lightest color. Just something to note. That if you are a person who likes to see still images, kind of up close images, this card is actually over on the Hero Arts blog, where there's an entire blog post. So if you would like to see those still images, maybe a little bit bigger, and so that you could look at them or save them or whatever, that is an option, and I'll link it below if you're watching on YouTube. So now here we're working our way out. The lightest color I am only going to have on the tops of his sleeves, and then where his hat is kind of curved over would catch that light. I'm not going to add the lightest color. I'm not going to keep the lightest color anywhere else. So I'm just going to narrow down these highlight portions, because remember, when you're coloring, the two colors you should see the most of are your midtones. So if you're coloring with a 4-color blend like I am, you should have 2 midtones. If you're coloring with a 3-color blend, then you'll have 1 midtone, but that should be the color you see the most of. Your darkest is for shadows, your lightest is for highlights, and they're not going to be everywhere. I also used that R32 to create the rosy cheeks that Santa is so known for. And I just put in 2 little dots right above his mustache. For the coloring of the sled, this is, I don't want to say it's, you just have to pay attention when you're doing this. Because if you chose to do it the way that I do it, if you chose to just color like the sled one color and then the, sleigh portion another color. I don't even know what they're called. I should have looked that up. Oh, PPS, thank you all for your contribution on the moose conversation, whether or not that was a possessive. I was pretty sure it was a possessive and it should have been mooses, but the plural of moose is moose. Just so you're all aware and we're all on the same page. But anywho, I chose to color mine 2 different colors. I wanted that kind of white band to break everything up at the top. And so I did add shading with my gray markers to that. Again, just like Santa, this will eventually get white. It will appear more white as we add more colors. And I did his sleigh red, and I'm going to do the bottom portion. Well, I just smacked the microphone. My apologies. Because I talk with my hands. Even when nobody's here, I talk with my hands. But anyway, we're going to do the bottom portion of his sleigh gold. One of the things that I did notice in coloring this is I did have to turn it quite a bit to make sure that I could get a good angle to apply my color so that I wasn't bumping up against other parts of the sled that I didn't want to be red. So going in with my darkest color, I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't a little bit nerve-wracking because there's no buffer line there. You know, normally I have my black line as my buffer. But I was just very cautious about how I approached it, turning the die to make sure that I could get the best angle for the cleanest line. And again, you could not do all of this dimensional shading. You could just color, the sled red with a marker and still, be coloring your die cuts with Copic markers or alcohol markers and still get a pretty even result. This is just how I prefer to color. So at this point, I'm just kind of blending everything out. I'm going to go back in again with my secondary mid-tone, and you're going to see that the lightest portion is just going to be very small. We have talked about in the past how Copics are transparent and you can use them to remove darker color. And that's what happened here. As I was trying to blend it in, I got a little bit overzealous. So I'm just going to go back in with that R35, put down more color, and then just fill that in with the lightest portion and move on to then the bottom. So with this bottom, I chose to do the gold because I just liked it so much. Look how pretty this is. Like all with these little fancy swirls and stuff. He's a fancy Santa. Here is where I'm picking up the color that's on my glass board. And because the glass board is new to me, that isn't something I'm real familiar with. So I think I just need to make sure I'm better about cleaning up in between colors, or I need to go back to having scrap paper. But you can see on the yellow that more like 3/4 of the way up, there's some red that got on there. I know by the time I'm done coloring, you're not going to be able to see that, so I'm not super stressed about it. But if you were, and you wanted to remove the color, at that point I would have stopped. I would have gone in with my colorless blender. I would have removed as much as I can, let it dry, hit it with the colorless blender again, let it dry, so on and so forth, until it was at the point where I could either cover it up or live with it. So in working out to my darkest color, I am adding shading like on the inside of the curls. What are we calling those? I'm not sure. I'm also adding shading underneath the actual body of the sleigh. And then I am adding shading more towards like the beginning of the curves and the ends of them. And this is going to give me that kind of like shiny gold look, because there has to be some highlights in order for, or some shadows and some highlights in order for it to look dimensional. And for this, I am not applying a lot of pressure to my marker. I'm really just kind of guiding it around that edge, almost kind of like alongside of it for the darkest color, just so that the edges are absorbing a little bit of ink, because I don't want to overtake the whole thing with my shadow. And you can see we're starting to get some of that shine that we're looking for. And then we're just going to go back through and blend out these colors. So, I mean, can you believe we're already coloring Christmas cards? I mean, we're here. It is what it is. I feel a little, I feel a little bad for Miss Caitlin, because, like, Peanut's birthday is earlier in the year. My birthday is earlier in the year. Eric's birthday is just after Christmas. But Caitlin, you know, she's pretty close to Christmas. And I never had, here, I was just checking to make sure Santa would look cute in there, and he does. Moving on to the tree, I colored all three of them the same, but I'm only going to show you one of them because this is a longer video, because I left my boo-boos in. Because I like to do that to show you guys, you know, we're all just out here trying to make this card thing work. And everybody makes mistakes. So I'm going to cover the whole tree in a base layer, and then from there, each top layer, I'm going to do just some flicks of color, getting darker as I go, and then back out to my lightest to blend it. And this is going to give it a ton of dimension. The guidelines on this tree that are kind of etched into it make it so easy to add the lines in the shape that it should be going. And then I'm going to color the trunks, but I did that with just like one color because you're barely even going to be able to see them. But anyway, so I feel a little bad for her because I feel like she's going to get all her gifts at one point of the year. If anybody has, you know, end of the year birthdays, let me know if you feel that way or if it's like not even a thing for you. But so we're working on, I asked Eric the other night, I was like, have you thought about it all, what you want to get her for her birthday? And he was like, has not even been a thought in my head. And I don't blame him because, you know, life is crazy with 2 kids and 2 dogs. And, I have thought very limited about what we will purchase her. I ordered her, I told you we're doing a unicorn theme. Did I tell you that? So I ordered her invitations and stuff and have been looking at some decorations. But then he, did all the work to get them mailed out. I know you're surprised. So he did all the work to get them mailed out, and sent them off on their way so that we will actually have people in attendance at the party. And then, so I haven't even like thought about what to purchase her. Let's go back to the card real quick. So here, I wanted to show you a couple of different ways that you could color the presents. This first way is the most detailed way, which is just going kind of section by section, adding your shading. I just added shading kind of like on the left and right hand sides of the present. And then for the ribbon, I added shading to the top and bottom of the portion of the ribbon that's on top, and then to the left and right hand side, so the portion of the ribbon that's underneath. This is by far the most involved, and I'm going to be honest with you, probably completely unnecessary. The next 2 presents, we are going to color much more simply, and I don't think that you're really going to notice, especially since they just get tucked back into his little sleigh there. I don't necessarily know that it's worth it to spend all of that time. I did take the time to shade all of the bows because they're more visible sticking out of the back of the sleigh. But I mean, the actual presents, I don't even know if it's worth it to spend the time. But I wanted to give you the option if that's something that, you're interested in. The peg doll, like, here's my problem. The peg doll, I didn't need to color the whole thing. I knew I wouldn't be able to see the bottom. Could I leave that portion uncolored? No, ma'am, I could not. Because I have a problem. I have to complete the image. I have to. And I don't know why that is, but I do, and I've just accepted that about myself. So for the next ones, we're just going to color the images just kind of super fast. I'm still going to add some shading to them, but I'm not going to take the time to do each individual section. So here's why today is a day, okay? Because I have 2 different videos to edit and voiceover, and of course today is the day my allergies want to act up. It's so frustrating. So here, what I'm doing is I just filled in the whole thing with the green, knowing that I was going to make yellow ribbons and that I would just be able to go right over the green with the yellow and nobody would know. Nobody would be able to tell that there was green underneath it because I still added the shading to the ribbon. Again, I don't think this is necessary. I'm showing it to you as an option, but I don't think that it's super important. And then I did remember to clean up my yellow before I moved on, to the next one. So this one, I'm doing the shading on either side of the present, and then I'm not going to shade the ribbon at all. I just picked one of my mid-tones for my reds and filled it in, but I did still shade the bow. But anywho, so over at my mom's house, Miss Caitlin has she's got a couple of interesting things, but she has a set of the blocks. I used to have them when I was a kid. Here we're just going to die cut out the Santa with his coordinating die, and then we're going to move on to getting this background set up. This is a long video, guys. Like, I hope you have a snacky, that your blood sugar doesn't drop in the middle of it. We've been here so long together. You got maybe some sips to get you through. So here all I'm doing is I'm just gonna glue my bows to my presents so I don't have a bunch of parts laying around and they're together and easier to keep track of. So she has one of those block sets that has like the shapes cut out of the lid. So it's like a circle and a triangle and a square. And she super loves that. Super loves that. Let's talk about the card. Here, I'm getting everything kind of set up for how I want it. Is this even necessary, Kelly? I don't know. But it's hard to see in the picture, but in real life, I think yes. So in the holiday borders and icons, they have like a little sparkle strip, and that is what I have here. And I wanted to put it underneath the sled as if like he had just landed and like the magic was still following him into his landing. Did you know you have to have quite the imagination to be a card maker? But anyway, so I did it. I stamped it down. In our embossing ink, and then I am using our sparkle embossing powder. So it's got the glitters in it, but just so you're aware, it's a clear sparkle, which means it's going to show up white on my card because my card base is white. But if you used a colored cardstock, then it would show up whatever color that would be with just glitter in it. And it's beautiful. But watch what happens here, okay? So I'm heat setting it as normal, and then I'm super excited because it's got glitter, and then I touch it. Why? Why, Kelly? Why did you touch it? So what happened was I touched it and I smeared it. That's exactly what happened. So then I go to fix it. I go to just stamp it again because there was a section that I literally just wiped the embossing powder off of, and while it was still hot. And so I knew it wasn't going to resist the ink I was going to put over it. So I had to do it again. And when I did it again, I double stamped it. I did not do it again. I'm just letting you know. I just left it double stamped and heat embossed it and went right over it because I don't think it's a detail that anybody's going to be paying close enough attention to that I need to fret about it. So yes, I made a mistake and I just left it in my card. That's what happened here. Here, I'm creating my kind of night sky. I sped this up a ton. 1 million times, not 1 million times. 400 times, I think. And that's because I'm just doing a lot of ink blending, which we have seen multiple times on my channel. And I'm creating just kind of like a lighter section in the center where my Santa's going to go. So the eye gets a little bit drawn to the center of the image. I am using summer sky, deep ocean, nautical, and pitch black for my sky. And these are all of our, all the Hero Arts core ink colors and the blending brushes, which I do enjoy. And then I like to do this twice as well. I do my Copic coloring twice. I do my my ink blending the 2 times. So once I'm happy with the way that that's looking, then I'm going to remove the mask that I have in place that's creating my horizon line. Normally I try to make my horizon line look a little bit more interesting and not just a flat line across. But because I'm filling up that whole section with die cuts, you're not even going to be able to actually see the horizon line. So I'm going to remove that, and then I'm going to go in with the passion flower. And this is a purplish blue, like a blue violet. And I like adding that for my snow. It's kind of been my go-to color for years, a blue violet for my snow, because I don't like making it gray, like it's dirty snow, and I don't want to always make it blue, so I found this blue violet works well for me. Here, multiple times I am going over my sparkle trail. One, this is going to create a shadow for my sleigh on my card, and 2, it's going to allow that sparkle to be seen. Now, I'm going to move on into making another mistake. Because, well, oh no, this first, my background looked too plain. That's what it was. Because sometimes, you just can't leave well enough alone. So I'm going to use our unicorn pigment ink. I'm not doing 100% job of inking this up, and I am kind of second generation stamping it. I know that I don't need to fill the whole card because, again, those die cuts, but I'm just varying the length and the width of the snowflakes. This, again, came from that holiday borders and icons, and I was really happy with the way that it looked. It's nice and soft, just to add some interest to my background. Here, I'm going to add some glue right across the top of my sleigh so that I can make all those pieces just one piece. So I'm gluing my Santa in there and then my presents as well. This blue one, I had to get it at a good angle so that it wasn't like a corner of it wasn't hanging out the bottom. And then once I have those, I'm going to start the assembly. For the assembly, I am actually going to do the trees first because they're going to be behind everything. So I'm leaving my Santa in place just so I can get the placement of my trees correct. And then once I don't need him anymore, I'll go ahead and scoot him out of the way and put my trees down. I will say that I think just this little snowfall background with the ink blending in the trees would also be a beautiful card on its own with no Santa at all. Just something like really kind of simple, pretty holiday card. So now we're about to make another mistake. That's what we're doing. So in my stamping, I stamped them separately so that I could get good placement for my Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I still didn't get good placement. I did not, because I made them too close together. And you're going to see here that like my and a Happy New Year is pretty much on top of my Merry Christmas. Like they're in a committed relationship. They've moved in together. This is a lifelong commitment for them. And it's terrible. It does not look right. It does not read well. I'm going to come up with a way to fix that in a minute. So now I'm going to go ahead and adhere my Santa. And then I will work on fixing my sentiment. anyway, I feel like, oh my gosh, there's a lot going on in this card. But so over my mom, she's got these blocks that she likes with the shapes. And so she's so cute because when Nana tells her, like, okay, Caitlin, time to clean up, she will put she puts one block in the box, and then she looks at you and waits for you to go, yay! And then she'll do it again, one at a time. She wants the yay. She's all about the praise. Here, the only stamp and die portion that I have is my Santa, and so he has a white border. In order to make him blend back into the background, I am coloring that white edge with my Copic markers, because everything else is a true die cut as for like a standalone, and so it doesn't have that white border, and I didn't want him to look out of place. In order to add some shine to my little sleigh, I added some white highlights, and I also used some of those white dots to kind of bolster up my sparkle underneath him. I will also use this to add snow to my trees. So that's one of the ideas that we have, is to get her little yay blocks. The other thing my mom has, and I don't really know where she got it. She said she picked it up at a garage sale, but I don't know how old it is. It's like a little elephant that you put they're like little, actually not little balls, like not enough. They fit in her hand, but not enough to fit into her mouth. You know what I'm saying? Because she's a little baby. But you put the ball in the ear, and then you press the button and it plays a song, which she will dance to most adorably. And then it pops up out of the nose of the trunk of the elephant. So I'm trying to see if maybe I could get her something interactive like that she may enjoy. I also added some extra glitters to my magic and to the bottom of my sleigh with some Stardust stickles. This particular color of stickles takes on the color of whatever you put it on, kind of like our sparkle embossing powder. Apparently I'm going to lose my voice in the middle of this voiceover. Isn't that convenient? So here is how I intend on fixing my sentiment. I am just going, this is Nautical Hero Arts cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss a sentiment so I can pop it up and put it over it, and nobody will ever know that I made that boo-boo except for me and, however many people watch this video. And that's okay, because sometimes you just got to readjust. So I chose the blue because I thought that it would balance out with like the blue night sky. But you certainly could have done this in like black ink over white, how I originally had it, and then just pop them up. You don't necessarily have to do a color, but I used the white detail embossing powder for this, and then I trimmed them into labels. But yeah, so I would like to get her, I think, something interactive like that she would probably enjoy. Another thing that I saw recently, it was like on Facebook, I think, where people had shared, like, not buying them toys, but buying them experiences. So like a science kit or a card kit or a day at the, arcade or whatever. Obviously she's too little for those things, but I do think I will keep them in mind for Peanut, versus buying him an actual, tangible thing that he probably isn't going to play with. So that's it. That is the whole card. I hope that you learned a little something, and then maybe you'll try, Copic coloring your die cuts to get kind of a different look, a little more dimensional look. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.